Hello and welcome into SDF with Laird. I am Andrew Laird, joined today by the one and only Palmer to debate about whether football is better than football. Palmer, what's up?
Yeah, not too bad. That was a bit of a jump scare on the music, and I was wasn't expecting it. But no, I'm good, mate. Busy day to be honest. So nice to have a little bit of a step back and talk all things sports.
Yeah, the music's it's just that. It's meant to be a little bit of a punch in the face to get you going. So I'm glad it worked. I'm glad it worked.
Blood's
Um,
flowing.
for those of you who live under a rock, Palmer also does Sport.Fun content, including something coming out today. Palmer, before we get into whatever we're going to talk about today, can you tell us a little bit about the Third Half Podcast? Are you even keeping Third Half Podcast as the name?
Yeah, I'm gonna run with it at the moment. I mean, third half podcast is meant to basically be the third half of the game. You know, you have your first half, your second half, game finishes, and third half referring a little bit to the analytics and the talking a little bit about it afterwards. So gonna run with that for a while. Yeah, I'll obviously in the video that goes out in a couple hours time, if anybody listens, it will be announced kind of there. Sam and Bruno are stepping away. It's not necessarily forever. It might be, it might not. They've both just kind of got a couple busy months coming up, personal lives. So I'll be steering the ship of the third half pod for now, and we've got a great guest this afternoon, Ace, best baller Ace. So yeah, definitely check that out when that goes live.
Yeah, that should be definitely a fun conversation. And, life gets in the way sometimes. And so sometimes you just got to make Sport.Fun your life. And then, it's just here. But anyway, um, I wanted to talk a little bit, at least today, when I told you, you were like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I want to basically look at this weekend and say, like, if you had money to put on Sport.Fun, like, would you look at football? And then, or would you look at American football because we have the playoffs coming up? And obviously, the game mechanics for American football are quite different than football. But then I was like, oh, there's like 8 games this week on the football side. It's a gold tournament. It's not that big, although I think I've had some of my best results on the football side in gold tournaments just because I happen to have maybe I've targeted the players that are actually playing. And so it's weird. I don't play any differently when it comes to gold versus diamond tournaments. And I'd love to say that was like, I'm so sharp and that's my edge, but it's probably just luck. But what are you looking at for this weekend in terms of the two sides of Sport.Fun?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting period. I suppose it's the first time within Sport.Fun that we've actually been in this situation where we're going through playoffs within the NFL, we're going through winter breaks, AFCON. You know, there's so much being like kind of concentrated into kind of one little bit there. So for me personally, I've been away myself over Christmas, New Year, and literally the last kind of 48 hours, I've been trying to get my head back into where is my portfolio, kind of what's going on, what do I need to do, and with the NFL side, I had a great talk with Ace yesterday and spent about 2-3 hours last night, really kind of redoing everything that I'd thought about it, and kind of looked at everything with a new kind of angle. My ports at the moment is probably 60-70% into the NFL side of things. I think we've kind of got a great ability to win some tournament points going up. As you said, the next 2 weeks is going to be a gold and then silver tournament, so it's not as lucrative within the football.fun, but there's still some kind of great pickups there. But then also you've got the kind of worry about Premier League now is going off for a break for 2 weeks after being one of the only leagues playing. So prices are a little bit everywhere. Good morning, Phoenix, Scribe, and Punk Rock. It is the afternoon for me, but good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Yeah, that's what I keep going back to. And I tend not to trade in and out much ahead of tournaments. I have kind of a foundation of players that I own, almost just basically add to. And for some reason, recently I've become like a round number stan. And so I'm like, I need to get a round number of shares on these guys. Just, I don't know if I feel like the screenshots look better or whatever it is. But I'm trying to see here. I'm like, I probably have 10x more on football than American football. And American football is one where I don't follow it as much as I used to. And it's kind of funny that the two of us are here and I'm like, I'm the soccer guy and you're the American football one on Sport.Fun. But the I can't understate how much FOMO I feel every time I see people open their NFL packs. And I'm just like, that's like, it's exactly like what I feel like if I was trying to like maximize ROI, I think American football lately has been where I've been. And Rick's here is reminding you about your 3 promotions if you haven't already done it. And I'm actually glad that
I actually
you
haven't
did
today.
forget.
He reminded me the other day, and I think I laughing reacted to it, thinking "fuck off," and then I went and checked. Was like, "Oh, I've not done it."
So actually, I'm glad this came up because so basically the way that I've been playing Football.Fun is my port's big enough that I usually get like 1 or 2 legendary packs per tournament. And on the NFL side, I'm way smaller. And so I, to this point, have basically been opening epic packs. But I currently have enough, or excuse me, I currently am sitting on, let me see here, 3,200 tournament points in NFL. And I was like, do I just wait for this weekend, hope that I win enough that I can open a legendary pack, or do I just rip a bunch of epics ahead of the playoffs and see what happens? So I'm curious what you would you do.
I'm in a similar position. I think. Let me have a look. I think I've got. So I've got in football. I've got 4,960 points. With an empty development, so I can't even cut to get
Oh
any
no,
more.
I was just about to say, just cut
And
someone.
and with the NFL, I've got 3,730 with 3. Actually, I have done my 3 now. Oh, look at me on the ball. I must have done it at like 10 minutes past midnight last night. And I've got 3 players left, but I mean I've got Sean John T, Pittman, and Rice. So nobody really to write home about on the NFL side. But I have gone through kind of ups and downs, buying epic packs, doing legendary packs, and I think the only problem is I then and you mentioned it before where you do a nice round number of your shares, you then end up buying loads of packs to get the dopamine hit, and you're like, oh, this is brilliant. And then you go, oh, I've now got 376 shares of this player that I've currently got 5,000 of, and I'm then like, well, do I go buy another 1,800 to round up to 7,500? I'm kind of constantly on that chase. So yeah, so at the moment I'm just like, no, I'm going to hold out for shares, and it's different when you talk NFL to football. For me, I'm almost now in the mindset of saying, well, you get more shares when the market cap is low. With the playoffs developing, will the market cap come down as people sell and move, funds out of the game or over to Football.Fun? In which case, is it better to then go and open the packs, right before the Super Bowl to get maximum shares to kind of lock it in? So there's all these different strategies going around on there.
I will say, have you been following the NFL market cap much recently?
I don't follow market caps at all, to be honest, because I think it's unless you hold every single player. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think somebody, I mentioned this yesterday. Obviously, Spicer, I think, sold out of Florian Wirtz, and his price had come down like 30-40%. Now, if you hold Florian Wirtz when a whale sells, doesn't matter if the market cap's going up or not. You've just lost 30%, and vice versa. That the market cap might come down because a whale's done it. But if you're dodging those landmines and you've not been caught out holding any of the players, you're sat there going, "What's the problem?" My port's flat. So I think with the NFL, it's especially the market cap to me doesn't really matter because it's difficult where players get injured and their backup isn't very great, so their price floors it. Players are getting eliminated from the playoffs, so they're not there. People are now got no competition and not going to get off-season rewards, so it's pointless holding them. So the market cap is naturally taking a nosedive. However, if you actually look at those active players that are still in competition, their prices are going up. So I look at my kind of little green line compared to the blue line in my squad overview. My line's going up. market cap, going down or not, it doesn't really matter in my opinion.
So the only time I look at market cap is when someone else makes a comment about it. And it's usually something like, oh, NFL is pumping. And then I look and it's like, the first thing I do when I see that whatever the run is on NFL, I actually go to the football side and I'm like, is there a comparable line that goes the other way? Are people just moving money? So I brought up the market cap thing because this is the month line for NFL. And the last few days it's going up. And I was talking to a couple of people, they're getting ready for the playoffs, or more people are understanding off-season rewards. But what was interesting was somebody had referenced that there were like a number of non-playoff players who were going up. Yep. And it was like, why are we doing that? And I agree with you that, like I said, the market cap, I don't own every player. I probably own more players from a percentage standpoint of like the total in NFL, just because the more epic packs I open, based on like what I win, the epic packs, I end up getting more shares of players, or excuse me, more players, as opposed to NFL or football, where if I get one, maybe two legendary packs, like the most I'm opening is eight different players. Yeah. And so I'll be honest, part of the reason why I thought about holding my tournament points in NFL is just so that I didn't have 18 players in my development squad and just having to remember to promote them every 3 days. But I am kind of interested in where the money is going in the NFL side, because it's not just on the playoff guys. And then I'm kind of just wondering, are people really looking at the off-season reward potential right now? We do know that the playoffs are going to count in terms of what tournament points get distributed to players in the offseason. So it's like, if you buy playoff players and they get in the top 3 or 5, then they probably will get more offseason rewards as well. And so I was curious, are you buying guys based on offseason rewards or playoffs, or just kind of holding firm?
So that was based on the back of kind of the conversation I had with Ace. I kind of went through and re-looked at everything that I had, because it's exactly, what you've kind of mentioned there is I think what a lot of people are seeing, where people are going, this guy is very good for off-season rewards. However, towards the final games of the season, it was kind of a pointless holding them, because you want to move your money to chase TP and go from there. You want to back the guys that have something to play for, so they're sold out of them. But then they're turning around saying, well, actually, look, so somebody that's quite, I think, a big one for a lot of people is like Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott for the Cowboys is out, but he's head and shoulders #1 scoring QB. So he's going to get the most off-season TP. And the reality is that I think Josh Allen is second. Yeah, so Josh Allen is then second. Now, even if Josh Allen goes and makes a Super Bowl, because he's got to play in the wild card, then the divisional, then the conference, and then the Super Bowl. If he makes it that far, towards the end, he's guaranteed pretty much to score, because there's not enough quarterbacks in the game that are scoring. But he's got no ability pretty much to catch Dak Prescott to take that #1 point for the offseason. Mm-hmm. So Dak Prescott's quite a safe hold. Whereas, just kind of quickly looking at some of my spreadsheets, if I then look at some other positions, okay, a Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions. Again, the Lions are out of it. Jahmyr Gibbs is joint 3rd top scorer. But then you've got people like James Cook for the Bills, who's kind of below him on top finishes. Are you holding Jahmyr Gibbs if Cook's going to go and do better in the offseason, score more rewards, and give you a better return during the offseason? So not as many people might be holding him. So it's such a difficult balance of what do you do. And for me at the moment, I'm not focusing on off season. I will leave some money in for the off season. However, I think I'm probably going to just move it in and chase the football side of it on the FDF, because I get it for people that are like, I've got no inclination for football. I don't care. I don't want to follow it, but I want to be around when the NFL starts, stick to it and go for there. But if you back your own ability and think that you can go and win more through trading and tournament points on the football, then, go for that. So I'm still not set on where I'm at. I'll be totally honest. I've got some kind of earmarkers of some guys that I'm going to be holding my shares in. A few of the Emeka Egbuka, I'm going to hold shares in him. The books are out, but I think he's going to be somebody that's good next season. So I've got like $50 in him, so I'll keep that. But I'm certainly probably not going to be keeping around $400-500 in some of the guys still. I think I'm going to have to cut those down and reallocate and chase some FDF players.
So are you expecting kind of a significant sell-off after the Super Bowl?
I don't know. I think if you'd have asked me that question every single week for the past 6 weeks, I'd have given you a different answer every single day. When it first came round that the off season, I put in one of the Discord servers that I'm in. I said, it's pointless holding for the off season. I made quite a bold claim at the very, very beginning before we knew how the off season rewards held. I said flat out, you just sell before, because everybody else will sell and it's pointless. I don't think you'd recoup what you would get. However, my stance is kind of changing up a little bit. I'm very, very interested to see what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. We're getting teasers for the TGE for the token. And then don't forget that we've got the Super Bowl in a month's time, but then we're going into, I can't even think of the name of it. Oh, not the draft day. Well, what the hell am I thinking of? Combine. We've got the combine coming up, and so we've got all these things now. If the team go and smash it out the park and do something really great, and if you're holding players, you get that bonus. I don't want to miss that. The FOMO is kind of holding me in there. So I don't think there's anybody's got the correct answer, to be totally honest with you.
Punk Rock said, where do you get the player performance data updates? Are the statistics based on actual data? So we'll pull it up here. This is a spreadsheet that they shared in the Discord that should show it's basically showing the scores each week. And so we should be able to figure out kind of where the off-season rewards presumably go to. Now it keeps getting updated because, again, the playoffs start, or the playoffs will be included kind of in the calculation, but you'll be able to see kind of like where everyone is, falling. The off-season stuff. So I really don't want to be this guy, but I'm going to end up being this guy that it feels like they have put such a focus on making sure that the NFL market doesn't just completely tank in the offseason, that selling out in order to just presumably front run a sell-off, it doesn't feel advantageous anymore. It's almost like it's a big hashtag trust the team move here, that they're going to make it worthwhile to hold throughout the offseason. Now, I don't know how much actual trading gets done during the offseason, and they did have that kind of supplemental pool of tournament points if people do buy in the offseason, but I don't know. We haven't really had a slower summer period, and we're not going to get this year on the football side. The summer is kind of usually slow. We have the World Cup coming up later this summer, but it's kind of where do we think the money flows? And I'm not sure it is absolutely going to flow out of football. Oh, excuse me, out of the NFL, just because they want us to, trust us, bro. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure where we what. Yeah. I think I hate that that's what it comes down to, but it feels like there's no part of them that's just oh yeah, it's the off season and we'll see you in 6 months. It's very much, how do we make this, or how do we continue to make this engaging for those who don't want to just sell out everything and come back in 6 months?
Yeah, I suppose that also then comes down to what are the pros and cons for selling out. So, I think the team have also made it pretty clear that if you zero your account, you're kind of saying goodbye to whatever the fund score means and any possible tokens coming down the line. So, those are also benefits to keep the funds within SDF to some degree. But yeah, it's that kind of confusion around what's better, who's better to hold compared to others. And obviously, when you look at the active shares of players, somebody who might have scored more, kind of, higher in the leaderboard throughout the season, but has got 5 times the amount of shares being held, you're getting a smaller return for that. So I think lots of different people are doing their own different calculations on kind of where's best to hold if you're holding. I don't think there's a one size fits all. And I know we Sport.Fun, but I just want to throw it back, and I'm not too sure if you were around for that. Within MFL, when we did the Euros within the game, people could kind of buy shares of the nations that they thought would do well. And it got to a point where people then were just lumping in last minute, oversubscribing a certain kind of pool, which then meant it was actually worth, it wasn't worth holding.
Yeah.
So an easy one is kind of, if everybody's going, right, Trey McBride, tight end, he's the one, he's the guarantee. If everybody in their dog goes and buys him before the Super Bowl, is he actually still worth the returns during the off season, as opposed to somebody who might have literally got 2 or 3 top finishes throughout the season and next to nobody's holding them? There's all these different kind of calculations to be done, that it's kind of saying it's not just looking at linear finishes of who scored highest, because as well, I think some people are kind of forgetting that, you might have 3 first place finishes compared to somebody that might have 10 leaderboard finishes, but they've always been fifth, and trying to balance those out. So there's a lot of different sites with doing different data, and everybody I speak to has got their own kind of spreadsheet. So yeah, it's interesting. And the other one is kind of saying, well, if you go and buy in the Super Bowl and you've bought in at this level, and after a month of off season, somebody turns around and says, I've got a better project elsewhere, or I'm missing out on the FOMO for the football, I'm selling up and leaving. Yes, you'll get more rewards, but your kind of value and share price that you hold the players in devalues. And it's why I don't think you can kind of sit down and just have a conversation saying, is it beneficial to hold off season or not? If so, who do you buy? Yeah, it's fun, it's exciting, and definitely one to kind of keep an eye on as the weeks go on, if you're already starting to plan for who to hold.
The McBride thing is kind of funny because I talked a little bit on my stream yesterday about one of the great things about Sport.Fun is like all of us can own the same shares. So like if somebody goes off, like we can all celebrate together that we own shares of that player. But like you want everybody that you know to own the shares, but you don't want everybody to own the shares, because if everybody has, then we're just winning less. And so it's this like really funny dynamic of, yes, I want to celebrate with other people who got that pick right, but we also hope that everybody else got it wrong, and so we can just take the bigger part of the pie. I want to talk about the fun score for a second, because I wanted to point something out. Because, and I'm glad Rix is here. Rix is the one who shares it. I don't think he actually calculates it. However, the top 100 right now is a score of 35,394. 35,394. My fun score is 35,394, spot 81734. So I feel like I'm the 100th person on the top 100, and I literally spend time thinking, what do I need to do to get my fun score up? And obviously it's like, trading, referrals, all this stuff. But do you think about your fun? Like, do you think about making moves on? No. And is it because we just have no idea what goes into it?
I obviously shot my fun score in the head many months ago. Back in August, where during the up and down. I don't know who that's aimed at, but that's fighting talk if that's towards me. From Rikes in the chat. So yeah, I shot mine in the head back in August, and kind of just it is what it is. I think I'm level 8 or level 9 at the moment. I withdrew a bit more back in mid-December before I went away, because I was away for a few weeks and just knew I wasn't going to be able to keep on top of everything and didn't want as much at risk.
Sure.
So, yes, I could start piling back in to try and boost that fund score, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, would I be comfortable? If I keep depositing to boost that fund score, would I be comfortable keeping that in the game, or am I only going to turn around in a month's time to withdraw it again? In which case, what's the point?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, it's not something for me. But I think for people that have stuck around, not sold, during the hype, not withdrawn, and that are kind of, level 30, level 40, level 50, whatever, definitely they're the kind of people that are on top of the fun score and trying to get an edge because they've got a lot to play for. I'm way outside the top 100. I'll get what I can, and be happy with it.
Do you have any expectations for the token?
It's my first time. I've never seen a token launch. Obviously, I wasn't able to do the ICO because I'm definitely not in England right now. So, you know, I'm just kind of watching from the sidelines and cheering on the people that have gone and been able to go and buy at the ICO, and hope that, some good people that I kind of speak to can do well off it pretty much, and enjoy. But I'm kind of just here for the benefits of the actual token, like the scouting games and the analytics. So I'm hoping that it kind of adds an experience to my game rather than gives a kind of financial edge. I'm not around for that.
I think that's a great point, and I kind of look at it a little similarly. That I didn't start playing Football.Fun to become like a crypto trader, and so
Mm.
like I'm just completely out of my element when it comes to that. And so anything that comes from the token, like same way, that's great. Whoever has, I hope it's wildly successful, because obviously, if the token is successful, that surely means that I don't think the platform can be successful without the token being successful, and vice versa. And if those things are successful, then I feel like, based on where we are kind of in the lifespan of the platform, then we should be fine. Like, we should be successful as well. And this isn't like we're still so early line, but we're so early. I'm picking up these crypto terms and phrases and feelings pretty quickly here. So what are you looking at for this weekend? Are you making any moves ahead of this stuff, or are you just happy with
I've
what you have?
I've I've gone into, to be honest, for the NFL, if we keep on that topic. And again, an extra little plug that the podcast with Ace will be out in a little while, and it was great to kind of hear his kind of thoughts and his process around it all. Somebody who's very, very, he's very data driven and analytical, and kind of hearing his thoughts about risk to reward. I got burnt on the Steelers Ravens. I switched all my Steelers, went into the Ravens on week 18, thinking Ravens have got an easy win. I woke up on a train in the middle of Ukraine to with bad internet, trying to check the score, saw that the Ravens had lost, and I already knew that my money was just absolutely disappeared. So I think with the playoffs, you're running a risk to have people that, if they get eliminated, the score will get depleted. So somebody that's got not much tournament points earned throughout the season. So yeah, the probably the biggest name that I've started loading into is Cook, James Cook, running back. That's not saying he'll do amazing, but I've kind of gone and made some light predictions around who I think will win each round of the playoffs. And should everything fall out the way it does, I'm kind of saying that maybe the Bills go in, play the Jags and the Broncos, and then potentially the Patriots or Texans. So I think he's got a good couple of weeks of scoring. Beyond that, I don't know.
So James Cook is my largest holding, and has been for a couple weeks. And it was more because of the run that the Bills had at the time when I bought him. And basically, my two largest holdings, or actually, let me go back to the Ravens thing for a second. So presumably you go in heavy on like Lamar and Derrick Henry,
Yeah.
Flowers, maybe, knowing that they didn't make the playoffs, but we do know that offseason wise, they should be fairly good. Like Lamar had a couple top weeks, I think, early in the season. Henry had like I think it was week 1. And then at the end, like there are offseason rewards for those guys. If you're not somebody who necessarily like follows the price every day, were you at least, was there any feeling that you were like, okay, it's not that bad because at least if I hold them, then I'll get some
I
decent gains?
just no, I just woke up and cut my losses and
Yeah.
sold them, to be honest. I was sat there and I was like, well, the reason that I did it, I rolled the dice on kind of Derrick Henry, thinking that because the Steelers didn't have DK Metcalf, kind of one of their biggest receiving kind of targets, I was like, hopefully Ravens can get the ball up and just run it with Henry, drain the clock, get lots of touches for Derrick Henry, and I'd go get a top leaderboard space, and I'd wake up all sunshine and rainbows. Obviously, it didn't go that way. So, yeah, one of the conversations that Ace and I had is kind of, do people look at going at some of the fixtures and trying to pick up some edge guys where people are sleeping on them because they're never going to win? Do you buy into them on that slight chance that the upset happens and their price doubles? And we were kind of discussing and saying, well, the only way to guarantee a win is to kind of sell before the game even happens, and just take your percentage and leave. So I'm kind of sat. I've color coded pretty much all my agency, and over the next couple of days, I've got some decisions to make with a few different guys, and definitely, what do you do? I think the biggest one for me is Caleb Williams. So that's a kind of name that I'm sat looking at, thinking, I'm a Packers fan. I don't think Green Bay can do it, and if the Bears do win, obviously Williams potentially has got a point scoring week and can go further. But again, if they if they get eliminated, then what? So it's so difficult, and I think because we've never been in this position, we don't know how the market's going to react. So we're throwing darts in the dark pretty much and seeing if we can get anything right.
The Henry one was funny because, and I say this is funny in the sense that I don't own any shares, so I didn't have to go on this roller coaster. But basically, like, this was the lead up to the Sunday night game, and we saw basically not that many players. Like, the scores were fairly low, and then it was like you still had Henry; he was a good play, and then you can kind of see how the market reacted to the Ravens losing. But you're right; like, had you bought Henry 3 days earlier and sold leading into the game. Now, obviously, hindsight here is that we know that they lost and he's out. But like, how much do we think it would have even gone that much higher had they won? Or basically would taking the profits still have been the right move? Hashtag not financial advice.
And that's the beauty of why we're I say why I am playing this game, is that's the fucking enjoyment, that's the risk, that's what we want to do. I'm sure there's some people sat playing who are I buy 3 weeks early and sell right before the kickoff and take my 3% profits and run into the sun happy. But me personally, I'm like, Ravens beat the Steelers, Derrick Henry gets the top finish, I get TP, his price goes up because, I mean, I don't even know who the Steelers play Texans, so I don't know the calculations whether that would have still stayed the other way as well. But you've then gone and got you've got another game in the tank, and another kind of, maybe it does drop, but then it comes back up, and all these what ifs. But yeah, potentially I'll live to regret, and you'll see me on those little red, all the way down where it's flatlined. It's about 4 hours after I'm one of those little red dots going. I've just taken about a 60% loss.
Well, I mean, you just look at it as the cost of your enjoyment of the anticipation of hitting it big. I'm someone who almost never buys to sell, as weird as that sounds. And I actually made a video about that a while ago, that I kind of look at this as just share accumulation. And so like at this point, because it's, the game has only been around for a couple months. And so the way that, if I buy, as soon as I buy, I never look at the price again, or I do it enough where I just don't remember. So I go back and I'm like, oh, I forget who the player was. It was definitely on the football side, but they like kind of pumped a little bit. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm up from that. And I was just like, okay. And now like, there was no thought of like selling, taking the profits and selling, because the way that I buy players is mostly who I think will do well in the game. And so if I sell, then I'm completely losing the ability to see if I'm right. Obviously I can just like, if they win, but then the whole selling before they have a huge performance, losing out on the TP. I think I have TP FOMO more than like trading profit FOMO. And so that's why I just end up holding everything.
And that's the other one. You know, what do you want more? Do you want the tournament points and the packs, or do you want the guaranteed profit? And I've had it before where I've sold pre-kickoff. I think it was, I remember one of the Liverpool games, I sold Ryan Gravenbach at half time. Came out 5 minutes into the second half, he scored, and I was just sat there like, fuck.
Yeah.
So there's all these things that it's just, yeah, so driven. And like I say, we're in unprecedented times with the NFL and the instability. But I suppose when we look at the football side of it, the true football for me, we probably got a bit more of a better picture and understanding as to what's happening. Premier League players are kind of coming down in price. They've got one more game before they don't play throughout a gold and silver tournament. And then yeah, we've got all the other leagues starting back, Bundesliga coming back, and Liga action coming again. So it's, do you just kind of ignore the NFL and look at football? Obviously, you're saying that you've got more of your port in football. Kind of what are you looking at on that side now at the moment?
Yeah, it's like 90% on the football side. And so I actually made a move for this midweek. It's one of those things that I look back and I was like, that was really dumb. So I basically saw that Man City Brighton play this midweek, and I think I own 0 Haaland, and he's just one of those that I was like, I'd rather take my chances with Yamal and Mbappe, and there he is, the third highest price. So I was like, do I buy Haaland for this midweek? And I decided not to, and I bought a bunch of Turkey because I actually had some Turkey, and then I think I almost doubled my exposure to Turkey. Turkey starts on the bench. Haaland, Turkey's not supposed to start. And I was just like, well, I messed that one up. But there was no thought of like selling Turkey to go, to do something else with it.
To chase, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just like everything I do just ends up being accumulating more on the positions that I have. Yeah, that's how I'm trying to treat it, at least for now.
Are you paying attention at the moment to kind of any transfer news? Obviously, January transfer window. There's been different talks. I know, keeping on the talk of Man City. Semenyo's, I think it's a done deal now, and there was talks about Omar Marmoush potentially going to Spurs. Is that kind of, are you somebody that looks at the news and tries to think, right, I can, obviously that we're a limited pool of players within FDF, but are you trying to maybe buy some of those players that might get a move? One of the biggest talked ones for quite a while was James Trafford potentially getting a move to go and be first team keeper somewhere. That I don't think that's happening. But there's probably a lot of different moves you can kind of go and try and make potentially.
None. Yeah, legitimately none. And I think part of it is just what you said, because we have kind of all the biggest players, and not to say that all of them play regularly, like Marmoush and Trafford are pretty good examples there, but within the player universe of FDF, it just doesn't feel like that many players have. So the two things I consider is a move positive for them? And it's like, usually it is. Like you said, Marmoush to Spurs, he goes from not playing to playing. That's a huge plus. But is Marmouche now top 5 capable every game week, every tournament? Yeah. And so I totally respect it from the people who look at me saying that, and they're like, well, then I'll go buy Marmouche so that when he does go off, um, if Jonathan David is teaching us anything, anybody can get to the top. Maybe. But yeah, no, I don't. That's what it is. I tend to have a more. I do have some Haaland. I take that back. I must have won him somewhere. I certainly didn't buy it. But I have a more. I would even just call it a conservative way of playing FDF. That I don't have a lot of guys that are like totally off the radar. The reason I have 10,500 shares of Jonathan David is because I got it in a founder's pack and didn't sell it in time. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'll just hold it at that point. And the only other guy that I tried to go out on a limb on was Matthias Sula from Roma. And just
sell him.
I can't do it now. I have to, like, if it happens, and he was so close the other last week.
He scored 2 goals, did he?
What's that?
Was it 1 or 2 goals he scored?
He scored 1 in the first. He had 110 in the first half, and I was like, "This is the week. Here we go." And then he got hurt at like 50 minutes. But the reason I bought him, I don't even want to look where I bought him, but like he was taking all set pieces for Roma, and I was like, "This guy is legit." And I had like completely ignored that Paulo Dybala was hurt at the time, and then Dybala came back, and I was like, he'll get hurt soon. And Dybala has been an absolute Iron Man since. And I'm just like, and Sula gets hurt, and I was like, oh man. But he was one that I was just like, nobody's looking at him. I'm gonna go after this guy, and it hasn't worked out. So then I'm just like, all right, let me just load up on Yamal. Fuck it.
We've only got 2 games tonight. We've got AC Milan versus Genoa, and obviously probably the biggest one, Arsenal versus Liverpool. Have you got any players within there? Have you been doing the new SDF predict game? Have you put some scores in for those games? What are you kind of thinking?
I did. I think I'd pick 1-0 Arsenal for that one. Like, I feel like that's the type of game that everyone's like, this is going to be great. And those games are always awful. Like they're very rarely exciting games to watch because they both play like they don't want to lose. And so that's what I did. But I don't know, the SDF predict fun it's good fun, but like I have no insights into score guesses or anything. So I'll play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing my Liverpool hat. I'm a Liverpool fan, but I reluctantly had to put an Arsenal 2-0 win because I was like, right, if Liverpool win, I'm happy. If Arsenal win, at least I get something back for it. So
yeah, nice little hedge, emotional hedge. I love it.
I was like, one with the head, one with the heart. I think it's exactly what you said there. It's a difficult game. One of the predictions I think will both teams score within the game. I think is a very, very interesting one. Obviously, Ekitike kind of got held back. I don't know if you saw, but the head physio at Liverpool and Conor Bradley have both taken him out of their fantasy Premier League team, Ekitike. So everybody's thinking, oh, he must be injured. What's going on there? No Isak, no Salah. A kind of goal scoring opportunity is a very, very slim. Potentially an ability to go and get some kind of Arsenal defenders, maybe try and back a clean sheet. I'm holding some Alisson, expecting lots of saves, hopefully not many goals, to see if he can kind of climb that goalkeeper leaderboard. But there's still some interesting things that can happen, I think, to knock off this tournament, and it's whether, I mean, Gyökeres isn't going to do anything. I think Jonathan David's number 1 on the leaderboard. I don't, fingers crossed Gyökeres starts for Arsenal because, we know he won't be a goal scorer.
Yeah. I guess it's Saka too, right? Is
Saka? Yeah, I haven't actually looked at kind of any predicted lineups, so I'm not too sure. quick glance at some of the predicted lineups. Which one of the questions from Rikes was Rix. I'm never going to say that. From Rikes JPEG, what product updates would you like to see within the next 2 to 3 months? Or better yet, what kind of updates would you like to see that could personally give you an edge in decision making? I think exactly that. If we see some lineup predictors and kind of stuff like that, it will be very, very helpful for the FDF. And one of the predictions I'm looking at, you've got David Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Rice, Erdegaard, Saka, and Gyökeres all predicted to start on one of the sites I'm looking at, which obviously then leaves out Eze for Arsenal. So doesn't look like he'll be getting minutes. I don't know if he's injured or whether he's just not favoured. No, I think he's just not favoured to start.
Not favored, yep.
Yeah, and Liverpool then, like I was saying before, we've got no Salah, no Isak, no Ekitike. Gakpo's kind of hinted at to start up front, which obviously doesn't impact anything FDF wise, but it could mean that Florian Wirtz is a bit of an underdog, could be seen as kind of a centre forward in the game and potentially get some goal scoring contributions. Who knows? Are you somebody then that worries about one game at a time, or do you look at weeks ahead? Because like I was saying before, Arsenal and Liverpool after today don't have a game for the next 2 tournaments. Is that something that you'd be worried about if you're holding any Arsenal Liverpool players or not?
So I kind of joked about it before, but I definitely meant it, that once I buy shares, I don't look at the price anymore. And so I don't really look ahead. Like I think the way that I've built my portfolio is I want to have exposure to certain guys that I think are good plays every week. So Yamal and Kane and whatever. And then there are certain players that I will buy. So that's what I do. I'll look ahead 1 or 2 tournaments, rarely 2, to be honest, and I'll buy guys for it. But I very rarely sell guys because they're not playing.
Okay.
In fact, I would probably guess that the only shares that I sell now are rewards.
Rix has just put in some financial advice in the chat.
Yeah. I still insta-sell all Arsenal, Spurs, and Man United players I pack. It's a strict rule. I think a man's got to have a code. And so I respect it. But yeah, I genuinely, I think that's really the only selling that I was going to say that's the only selling. I sold, I think all of my Gavardiol shares the other day, well after everyone else sold theirs too. So it's not like I got a good price on them. But in that situation, I didn't see any benefit to holding. He's out 3 to 5 months because of a broken leg, presumably back for the World Cup. But even, I'm certainly not thinking about the World Cup now in terms of like players that I'll buy. And so, yeah, most of the selling I do is rewards when I pack someone I don't want, and then I can put that money into players that I do want. It's like as simple as that.
Are you a big fan of the swap feature then, are you?
I've actually never used it. Yeah, like genuinely, I've never used it. And I think the reason is because I tend to sell immediately and then buy later. And I don't, for some reason, when I win shares, I just want the gold immediately. And I was like, I don't want to rush the buy decision. I'm willing to rush the sell decision, but I'm not willing to rush the buy. And so, yeah, literally I've never swapped. If there was cross sport swapping, I'd probably do that. And I actually said this early on, I would swap every single NFL share I had. But then again, I always think about this like on reward day. And then I see people post their packs and I'm just like, I'll stay. Fine. That's all.
So what are you then planning if we start to look at the next kind of 2 to 3 weeks across the game? Obviously, in 2-3 weeks' time, we're going to have on the NFL side a bit more of a stronger inclination on potentially who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and on the football side of it, we're going to be coming back to full action across the board. AFCON will be back from playing. We'll be back into diamond tournaments, and all 5 leagues will be going. What are you kind of looking at? Are you planning as of today for that kind of period there in a few weeks?
Yeah, the one thing I decided I was not going to do in NFL is buy guys that I think could make the Super Bowl, because like I look at the odds but like every year something weird happens and whatever is expected doesn't happen. And I don't really want it. I didn't want to plant a flag on Josh Allen and be like, the Bills are definitely going to the Super Bowl, and then be left with a bunch of Josh Allen shares, which are great in the offseason. Actually, that's who Shakir from Buffalo.
Okay.
So
Wide receiver.
he is awful. It's right. That's unfair. That's unfair. He's not a great scoring player. He's not going to have a lot of offseason. I mean, you can look. It's a lot of red here. He's not going to have a ton of offseason rewards, but the Bills could make the Super Bowl. And if he makes the Super Bowl, like, he's one of just 1 or 2 wide receivers that are left. And so you could really win a bunch with him. But if you went full in on Shakir and they lose in the first round, like, this is what you're holding. And it's probably half after they lose. And so I'm so far from an expert that I have no interest in speculating on playoff NFL, that I'll speculate in football, where I feel like I have at least a longer run of utility from those shares.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing as well is we don't know what's going to happen in terms of trades on the off season. You know, will Shakir stay wide receiver 1 come the start of next season? Will he get traded elsewhere where he's a backup? Will he get traded elsewhere where he's going to see more targets of the ball? It's that speculation. You could go and buy Shakir now, and watch him go and get traded to I don't know where he's going to get a lot more targets, and all of a sudden people go, right, I need to get on board with him, and it's a great buy. Likewise, you could buy a load of Shakir. The Bills go and either pick up a wide receiver in the draft or trade in for a big wide receiver 1. Shakir drops down the kind of I can't even think of the words
Depth
today.
chart.
Depth chart, that's the one. Shakir falls down the depth chart, and all of a sudden you're then going, oh shit, this is bad. So that's the other thing that kind of excites me is, at the moment, the 72 players we've got are all kind of top of the depth chart. We're going to see potentially another 72 players added in. So if Shakir at the moment is like, number 10 out of 11 wide receivers in the game, and we go get another 10 added onto the game, where does that put him now? And his chances of ever getting a top 5. So yeah, I don't know. I'm both excited and very skeptical of it. I think there's going to be some people who come back in a couple of months' time and they have made bank. They've got the knowledge, they've made the calls, and you put your money where your mouth is. They're gonna be scouting very well, picking up some good players. I think there's going to be other people coming back saying, shit, I'm down quite a lot. So it will be interesting to see what happens.
So I'll make this the last thing, because I promise you we wouldn't go too much over an hour. And so, and we all have to take a break before third half pod comes out in, I think you said it was about 2 hours from now. Have you considered what prices look like in July and August when the NFL season starts to ramp up?
And that's the one, because how early's early? There's people buying now for the off season. Are they going to hold throughout the whole of the playoffs, or are they going to sell and rebuy back before the Super Bowl? There's obviously a second pot of earnings. You've got the kind of in season, regular season. There's going to be a second pot for if you buy those in the off season.
Yep.
How early do people get in? Is there a big sell off despite the NFL coming back? Is there a big sell off to go and play in the World Cup? Do we see an NBA game get added on where people go, I need to put a bit of money? if I don't even know what to think to kind of give a speculative answer.
Mhm.
And I also think it's not going to be across the board. It's not going to be like we can sit back and say, right, the market cap is going to be at 10 million. I think there could be some players, you're looking at Puka Nakua at the top of there. His price come July could be double what we're looking at now, but then there could be other players that are just way, way down
Yeah.
the order. We've got a few aging guys, potentially I haven't looked at kind of contracts. So there are people coming into the end of the contract might retire. Travis Kelce, I think he's
I was gonna say
30.
shout out Travis Kelce.
What is he what, 37, I think, off the top of my head,
Yeah.
36, 37, 38, somewhere around there. Does he come back next season? Um, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you touched on everything that I considered, because the way that I think of it is, if more people play, number goes up because people are coming in to buy shares. So it's like, what are all the things that could not necessarily stop the number from going up, but um, yeah, what could stop it? And you kind of mentioned, like, if NBA comes, people are obviously going to start. The natural inclination is, let me sell some of this stuff that I have here and go into NBA. And then the one that you didn't touch on that I think about a lot is, what happens if they're like, hey, there are 50 new NFL players for this season. And I don't know how you introduce that many. Obviously, scouting, they'll maybe they trickle them in, but like, the more players, like NFL players that get added, if the pool stays the same amount, then now you're selling a little Puka Nakua to buy someone else who's new, some Matthew Stafford, if he gets added and stuff like that. And so it, and obviously I think this is something that they think about at Sport.Fun, of how do we introduce these new things without in a way that it discourages people from selling everything they have and just moving it over, as opposed to us putting in more money or new players coming in. And it's certainly not like that's not an easy thing to figure out. But it is, that's what I think about, is like, what happens if we look at the current NFL player base and they're like, it really should be double. And it's like,
Mm,
shit, if it's double, does everybody get cut in half? Obviously not. But like, if they added, if they doubled the player pool, Puka Nakua is probably still the best wide receiver. So it's not like
yeah.
he has to worry, but then it's, yeah, all of the Ravens guys you bought. What happened to those guys? What happens to Mark Andrews, Zay Flout? Like, what happens? What happens? And I can't, it's one of those things that I just struggled way too much to get my head around it, to even like begin to put a number on any of it.
Yeah.
Other
I
than
mean,
I'd
I
love
mean,
to see $1 Yamal again.
I was having conversations with I'm sure Snake from having conversations. I was in the back of a taxi, not looking at the game, and he was kind of shouting out some numbers about comparing the market within the NFL to the market in football, and kind of looking at the top price player being like Nakua, and then looking at the 10th player in terms of value, and then doing that over in football, but kind of doing first to about 20th because there's more players,
Yep.
and looking at the groupings of kind of values. And when you look at top there trending, Bucky Irving could be a great player next season, but he's going to earn you nothing throughout the off season. He hasn't scored in the top leaderboard. So you've got all these different kind of, is it that people are really, really undervalued in the NFL in terms of where you compare to other players within the game? Not, like when you look at the wide receiver ones, if you want to call that to Nakua, and then you look at JSN, and then you kind of keep going down and looking, and you do that for the quarterbacks. Is the price actually unfair? Does it,
Mhm.
is it a good entry for people? Do people have to rob Peter to pay Paul and sell one player to another? I think you could probably ask 10 different people, and they're all got 10 different strategies, because who knows, and if you're happy playing with what you've got. We obviously saw Rick say, he sells certain players for a certain club. If that's your mindset anyway, and you just keep doing that, instead of selling those players at those clubs to buy into the existing, do you just carry on that trend but buy into the new players? Do you even have to touch the shares that you've got elsewhere? So it's going to be interesting. I think the next month when we build up to the Super Bowl is going to be interesting because a massive drop could potentially scare people and people could leave. But there also could be a massive buy. Don't forget, off-season rewards are locked in from the kind of kickoff on the Super Bowl. Do people come and buy in bulk with half an hour to go? And in which case, you could have a conversation the day before saying this looks really doom and gloom, and all of a sudden you get a load of fresh money coming in. So yeah, it probably doesn't answer any question whatsoever. But when you look at the breakdowns of who can earn what, you've also then got to compare it to, can you earn more money elsewhere, other games, other projects, other parts of Sport.Fun. So
I was going to comment when you were saying you could have 10 people with 10 different strategies. That part also doesn't assume that only one is right. Like all 10 could be successful. They're just successful differently, taking different strategies, and the success may look different, but they could presumably all succeed. Obviously they could all fail as well, but that's like one of my favorite things about the platform is that there's no single way to play it. There's not, nobody's discovered a true optimal strategy yet. And so, I'm not sure there is one to discover. And so it just leaves the users able to play how they want and see what's been successful for them. All right. That's our hour. Palmer, I'll let you go here. Everybody, please take a little break and then go watch or listen the Third Half podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link to the Third Half podcast is in the description of the video. So check that out. And if you're on X, I'll be sure to add a tweet there with that. Palmer, where else can everybody find you?
Yeah, I don't even know what my bloody X handle is, to be honest. I think you've linked me in this. I don't know what my Palmer something or other, pretty much across the board. But yeah, definitely Third Half podcast is out in an hour's time with Ace Best Baller. So you don't have to listen to me rambling on. It's listening to him who's actually knows what he's talking about, knows what he's saying. So if you've listened to this past hour and gone, Palmer and Laird, what are you talking about? I go and poke and prompt some questions out of Ace, so I'm sure he'll give you some better answers. So, but no, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you for asking me to jump on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate everybody watching live. And I don't think we actually gave Rick's much on the product update stuff, so maybe we'll have to do a whole show on it. Although I'm on team dark mode, please, and so I'll leave that one for today. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming. Good luck on Sport.Fun. Please make sure you get outside.